Hello, I'm Z, short for Zaynab al-Bernoussi, and this is a very brief book review of Conflict and Cooperation in the South Caucasus, from Theory to Policy by Houman Sadri, published by Lexington Books in the end of 2023. In this video, I will start by summarizing some key points from the book following its structure. I will finish by brief pros and cons of the book. In the beginning, the author does something not often done in academic work, and that is acknowledge a student in detail. Usually, academics acknowledge peers, editorial partners, and even family. Focusing on a student is good because it challenges hierarchy in a constructive way, given that younger scholars have the advantage of a fresher look. In the preface, the author reminds us about the Russia-Ukraine ongoing conflict, which makes the Caucasus immediately important as it is another space of interest for Russia. He reminds us of the 2008 Georgian-Russian War, too, which ups the stakes. Still in the preface, he quickly lays down the quick questions of the book, so we don't have to wait until the introduction. One key question is, how does the Caucasus fit the international chess game? In a nutshell, it is a zone of instability that needs to be handled with care. He tests the clash of civilization theory and several IR views to assess the geostrategic value of the region beyond the classical Mackinder geopolitical approach. A key concern for him is the growing power disparity between Azerbaijan and Armenia, particularly in light of the Nagorno-Karabakh dispute. For the impetus of the study, the author states that after the Soviet collapse, scholarly attention to Russia and former Soviet countries decreased, and we need to be careful with that. We understand that the book is concerned with security matters, but not just military capability, as it takes a more holistic look at the economy, cultural integration, and plurality. The first chapter on security sets the tone. It also starts by giving us helpful maps and data, which will be done systematically in the rest of the book. Here is one from page 40 that shows the countries of the Caucasus having oil and how they connect to regional powers, which in some cases are even global powers. The geography of the Caucasus is unique because it's both attuned to invasions, because we have plains of passage, and can provide refuge since there are mountains to hide. The order of the country chapters is first Azerbaijan, then Armenia, and finally Georgia. It follows the flow of the author's investigation. Given my own interest, I will spend more time on Azerbaijan. Azeri land is more accessible. It has a history of Islam, Zoroastrianism, and Mithraism. Now it's mostly Shia Islam, unlike the Christian concentrations in Georgia and Armenia. But historically, there have been an ebb and flow of various religions across these countries. First, it was almost all Islamic. Then Russian gains changed this makeup. The rule of the Tsar, brought down by the Bolshevik Revolution, changed things again. And in 1918, the region was both free from Russians and, to avoid Ottoman rule, formed the Transcaucasian Democratic Federal Republic to stay independent, but then dissolved after only a few months. Both the US and the EU are interested in the South Caucasus for energy, security, and democracy. Presidents Haidar and Ilham Aliyev monitored Islamic activism. The country got independence in 1991. At first, Baku's economy collapsed with the breakup of the Soviet Union. and by 1995, the GDP was only 37% of what it was in 1989. Yet, despite a crushing poverty rate of 49% as recently as 2001, Azerbaijan quickly catapulted itself to an upper middle class income country, and it has now over 15,000 US dollars GDP per capita and an estimated poverty rate of only 4.8%. Azerbaijan so far can't really fully ally with the US because of possible backlash from Russia, remember Georgia. Before the Aliyevs, the rule of Elchi Bey was marked by ultranationalism, which worried Iranians since they have Azeris who could want independence. Haydar Aliyev made sure to tone it down, but kept a nationalist discourse that still aligned with Turkey, which ceased with his son, yet that gave foundation for Turkish support for Azeri territorial integrity. And like Armenia, the country's relations with Georgia are okay. Chapter 3 is on Armenia. We are given its most immediate history, economic status, and major relations. Russia's relations with Armenia are often denounced by Azerbaijan, particularly regarding weapons supply. There is also a mutual disappointment between the Armenian state and its diaspora in the West. Armenia's Velvet Revolution overthrew the Sargsyan regime, yet it was mild in its attempt to make change, which made it more like Latin American revolutions rather than the dramatic change of the Eastern European revolutions. Chapter 4 is on Georgia. We start with the Soviet history of the creation of the oblast, with non-Georgian Abkhazians who are Muslim, then ethnically Georgians of Adjara who are Muslim, then the mix of religions of South Ossetia, Russians, Chechens, Georgians, and Circassians. There is the Rose Revolution of 2003, which aimed at liberalizing the economy and that gave the ongoing style of the country. In the conclusion chapter, the author reminds us of three common variables to the three countries. First, separatism. Second, internal instability. And third, internal rivalry. Also, not one IR theory or the clash of civilization idea is enough to explain their political dynamics. But, of course, so no need to sensationalize that. To conclude, prose of the book, geared for students and a wider audience, very pedagogical because it's systematic. One gets absorbed in the reading, and the colorful personality of the author transpires in the writing. Not only he is clearly very knowledgeable, but he cares that you follow. Fantastic passage in page 19, which is a quote from NATO's first Secretary General, Lord Ismay, who briefly depicted the organization major mission with three functions: to keep the Americans in, to keep the Russians out, and to keep the Germans down. Last but not least, the author has excellent insider insights on Iran and Turkey as regional players, which you don't often see in mainstream security studies. Lastly, one con, it would be helpful if the author was more specific about IR views when they are tested. So, for instance, if it's a realist premise or geopolitical explanation. Thank you and bye.